All right, well, I have the time as 6:33, so I'll call the work session of the mayor and council for the city of Snellville, Georgia, Monday, March 11th, 2024 to order. We do have a quorum. Everyone is here, except our note taker, Melissa. So that's you tonight?
That's
Are
me.
you taking the notes? All right, so first we'll run through the lengthy agenda we have. We have a proclamation for the Brookwood High School girls swim team. Carrie, thank you for handling that. Did you want to also read it, or do you want me to read it?
It doesn't matter. I can. I've known some of these kids since before they were born.
Then it's appropriate, I think, that you should read that.
Okay. There may be, I don't know if Melissa fixed it, there was a typo on it. That it is the 2023-2024 team, and it said 22-23. I had emailed her about it, but that was Friday, so I don't know if it got fixed in time.
Do you have the proclamation?
Yes, it's going on.
Okay.
Correct on that? No, it's incorrect still.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll just get some white out.
No.
Well,
I have really nice
Well,
handwriting. I just-
maybe present this tonight and get them.
Yeah, and then we can get them a corrected copy. All right, then we have the approval for the minutes for February 26th. And then the only item we have is under new business, the approval of the proposal for the roof replacement. Did everybody have a chance to see that, and anybody have any questions?
It's Matt's pen.
Matt, anything you want to say about that?
I mean, it's just, I think at the end of the day, it's an older roof, almost 20 years old, and it's just Germa's chalking it up to normal wear and tear, and there's really not much we can argue there at this point, it being 20 years old. I mean, it just, the way it goes sometimes, unfortunately. You know, last year, maybe 2 years ago, our big expense was our chiller. We had to replace the chiller.
That's right.
And we're just getting to that point where the building's reaching those useful life of certain things, and hopefully in most of our lifetime we won't replace the roof on the building again. That's the way it goes.
It won't be replaced before I'm done. All right. Any correspondence? City attorney's report?
I'm going to be requesting an executive session. It'll be for real estate and for litigation.
All right, so under discussion items, we have our first item. Goodwin Mills Kaywood is going to give us an update on the Community Recreation Center. So we've got Amy. I know Andy's back there too.
Fantastic. Well, Mayor, Council, appreciate you being here today. So we're going to show you all the first look and peekaboo in terms of what we're doing at Briscoe Park. So without further ado, I will share our agenda is to quickly go over the design process and show you where we are. We're going to look over our schedule just to give you guys a run of the lay, and then we're going to go through our next steps and what we have on the horizon. So for our design process, some of you may remember this lovely image. So this was the campus master plan and what all the procedures were going to be for Briscoe Park. And so for our frame of reference, we are looking at the proposed community center and then the adjacent developments around it. Our focus today is going to be on the building only. And so who all can read plans? Who cannot read plans?
50-50.
50-50. I will go slow. I will go slow. So what we're looking at here is the first floor. And so I'll give an apple analogy. If you imagine an apple and you slice it in half, and then you see seeds, you see the skin, and you see the meat. This is what we do as architects to the building. So if you can imagine that we slice the building in half, we pulled the roof off, and we're looking down into it. This is a floor plan. So this right here in this front area, I love the screen's low enough I can Vanna. This is our front door. So this is the main level. This is an upper tier, if you will, in terms of a grading plan. This is a lower level. So what we're doing, this is the gymnasium, and it's a much larger volume, which requires much greater height in that space. And so therefore it's going to be a nice transition when you look at the front of the building that this doesn't really compete, because this is going to be nestled into the grade. So this is roughly about the same location that the current center is in right now. And so if you guys have been there before, you probably looked out that back platform to our field, and you've been able to enjoy that beautiful view. So same analogy applies here. When you come in the front door, all of this in yellow, this is our circulation patterns. So you have a direct line of access and sight to the back of the building that's here in this zone. We are getting our survey hopefully sometime this week, and we will see if our plan is going to come to action. But this out here we imagine could be a lovely plaza that you can still overlook the mural fields that are down there in that area. Then halls in this zone are also set up so that way if there ever is a future addition on this space, y'all have plans in place that you can add on to this building in the future. So we are trying not to lock you in on day one, that there is future expansion that could be down the road if you so choose for it. Now, the things that are in this blue area zones, we have on the upper level, this is your community center. So this very much functions as either one large room, or if you notice that there's little white dash lines in between here, these are movable partitions, they're proposed, so that way you can shut it off and then you can have rental income or events, have multiple things going on at the same time, and they all share this centralized warming kitchen in this zone here. You have direct access from the hall, so you can get into there and prepare food or drop off food if that's the case, and not disturb the groups that are in this room. These items on the side here, they're much more sporty, if you will, kind of activity zones, multi-purpose rooms, but smaller in nature. What you're seeing in here, these are tables. So architects, we think about visually how many people can fit into a certain space and then laying out furniture accordingly. So that way we can see if we've done a good job in terms of the square footage for the room. So working with Lisa and her team, we're thinking through what's going to happen in these spaces, and then really providing and making sure that we have enough space in these zones. For reference, y'all can't see this in the back. I'm cheating, I can, I'm up close. This says 112 in terms of tables and chairs in this zone, and this room is set up with 120. And these are roughly about the same size, so it just shows you different furniture layouts. If you want a classroom setting, the setup on the left is geared toward that. If you want more of a banquet style or some sort of a team room, the round tables on the right are set up that way to give you that feel as well. So the upper left-hand side in the green, this is where staff is going to be. So think of this as a suite. So therefore, we're closing this down. We have a few offices in this zone and a nice reception, check-in, welcoming desk that you see in this white L-shape, backwards L-shape is your desk. And so that is intended to have visual connection to the hall, be able to greet people, be a front door whenever people come into the space, but yet still have access to different staff that may be in this segregated suite in the back of the zone here. We have lockers in the front too as well, so easy check-in. When people come in, they can actually put their stuff, get down, and get to where they need to be rather quickly. The green zones in the center, these are your restrooms. We have a family one in the middle, and then have a cluster of group sex on male and female on left and right of this space. The yellow items that are here, these are storage support. We always need storage, so we're trying to carve out areas for balls, events, tables, chairs, things of that nature that all need to be tucked away. So if you come down, you see right here and right here we have access to this track. And so this is an upper level that looks down into this multi-purpose gymnasium, and so we can actually walk through here without having to get down into this lower level right here. So if I come down and want to go down the stairs, I'm going to go right here. So this is our white area that is the stairs that goes down into this zone. And then from an egress and a code standpoint, we have to have two. Make sure that we keep everybody safe. So that is your second zone to be able to circulate up and down. With the exception of just driving around, which we haven't worked out the full logistics of the landscape, but there will be access down lower too as well. So that is the upper level. And then if we look at the lower level, so this is actually on the gymnasium floor, and this is set up to have two large full-size gymnasium courts. So that way you can have two sets of play going on simultaneously if you're so inclined to do so. We have spectator seating, which are these blue stripes on the sides, so roughly about 62 at the top, 62 at the bottom, same thing on the other side too as well. And if you'll notice, this is set up for one arrangement. I'll show you a couple more arrangements too as well on this floor. But we'll go through a few support areas in this zone. The green zones, just like the top, restrooms. So you have male and female on this side. On the upper left, you're probably wondering what in the world is in that little yellow space. That's storage, and that is actually a folded up basketball court. So if you're going to have additional courts, we thought about size and complexity, where would those go if they're not actually suspended, if some of them get tucked away, and that shows you how many that you can actually put in there. So that's just a frame of reference. There's a large roll-up door on this side to be able to access a lot of the equipment on and off the court. You have two man doors, if you will, for pedestrian zones on the left and the right, or excuse me, top and bottom on the left. Another one that's accessed right here. So these will be direct graded access to the outside. You also have a roll-up door that's in this zone, and so that's where your storage, your large equipment can come in, and then can directly come onto the actual court. So not only can you come straight in this way, but you can also come in on this zone too as well. Building support over here, so we have not begun the conversation with our engineers just yet. We want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the direction that the concept is heading. And then, so next week and the week after, we're going to start getting our engineers on board and really looking at how are we going to heat and cool this space, what kind of lighting do we have, all these rooms that they need to as well will be coming down the pipeline. And so we tried to carve out some space. Once they do get on board, we'll start nestling a little bit, because inevitably they always tell us we never give them enough space. I don't know why that is. We do our best, but so there will be a little bit of sausage making that we'll have to do, a compromise of give and take. But more or less, this is the floor plan. So if you've noticed, this is the stairwell. So this comes down. So once you enter from the upper level downstairs, you've got this nice large opening area here. So it just opens up, and you have on direct access a concession stand too as well. So it's very easy in terms of wayfinding. If you want to grab a snack and then go catch a game, you know where to go. And then direct access to the outside again, and along with some more lockers in this space. So very clean, simple plan, but very affectionate, or functional, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed this part too as well. So if you don't want to take the stairs, we do have an elevator too as well, to be able to go up and down. And then, so you probably said, okay, well, what if we do pickleball, right? Guess what? We've got a diagram for you guys. So this is what pickleball looks like. So if you're going to say, how many pickleball courts can I put on the main 2 basketball courts? Well, you can actually put 6 of them. And so that is a range. I know we have some pickleball that we planned for the exterior too as well, but this is what it would look like on the inside. And then I know y'all asked me about volleyball too. That was coming next, wasn't it? So how many volleyball courts can you put on this? You can actually put 3. So this shows the different arrangements. Now, will it stay? We don't know, but this is for the Q&A session in terms of what will fit, what is possible. We knew that the objective was 2 full-size basketball courts, and so these images just prepare you all for what else is possible on the courts. Okay, so if we look at schedule from here, you'll see that we are roughly in these grayed out zones right here. We have completed what we call schematic design, which is the concept phase and the dreaming phase. And do we have all the program elements right? If you're going to bake a cake, there's certain ingredients that go into that recipe. And so think of that the same realm as architects. And so what we do as architecture is coming up with a list of the spaces and figuring out what's going to go into our building. And we've got that. So we pretty much have all the staff happy with what needs to be in this building. And then the next phase is this design development, or DD as we affectionately call it. And this is where the engineers start to get introduced. So assuming that our concept is approved, y'all feel like we're on the right direction, then we move into engaging with our engineers and really start to think about what does this building look like. And then hopefully this week we'll have a survey too as well, and we start pushing forward. The construction document phase, which you're seeing in here, this is where we start to really put our heads into the computers and put together the construction documents, and it's basically a 3D building, if you will, and then put that and print it on paper, and then the contractor goes to work. So all in all, we're thinking that roughly about August of 25 is what our substantial completion would be, and simply that just means y'all can use it for its intended use. So when can you start moving in some furniture and really claiming this, it would be around August and 25. Okay, so let's talk about next steps. Recognizing this master plan, we've only focused on this one building. This week we should have the final survey information back, and so that way our civil engineering team can take the survey and start to position the building and make sure that we have aligned this properly. And we're going to start to look at some of the other elements that are on the site. So this is the master plan that we intend to use going forward to create y'all's vision. So our civil engineering team will pull up some of this information. We also have our geotechnical engineering team that's also been engaged as well. So they're sitting on G waiting on O. So as soon as we tell them that we have the right placement for the building, they'll come to the site and do their borings. And then that in turn, sorry, I'm nerding out on y'all very heavily right now. He's like, yes, you are. So we have more engineers that are coming out on site who will determine what our next steps are on this. All right, so then if we also think about next steps is to be mindful of your budget. Very mindful. That's our job. So each step of the way when we go to schematic design, design development, CDs, to always bring this kind of budget information back to you all. We have roughly about 45,000 square feet currently planned right now. So what I have shared with you is roughly in that benchmark. And if you think about, which we did some cost estimates back in 2020, and now here we are today, which actually is not 2023. This is an older slide when we interviewed, but it's still relevant. This number is roughly the same, which is 360 a square foot is what we would advertise and allow you all to use as a benchmark. And so for all you mathematicians out there, that's roughly about a $17 million project. And so our current contract is for a $12 million with the hopes that it could be $12 million. So we have to do a couple things here tonight. Maybe no action required, but more so a thoughtful intent and discussion is we are currently right now with all the needs for the building and what's going into it over the budget of our current contract. Now, back here, we were roughly in that realm, which was about a $12 million project, but you can see escalation from 2020 all the way to today. We've had a little bit of increase. So that is what I have for you all today. So certainly we'll open it for any questions, whatever you guys may have, and feel free, I can back up to any slide too as well, if that's helpful.
Amy, one question I have. I thought that we were going to use this building also for like our adult active center, aerobics, and where will that
Yes,
be? In
ma'am.
one of the
Great question. Let me back up and I will show
basketball
you.
courts or?
Let me go to the upper floor. One more click and we're there. So these rooms that are in this zone right here. So these are your activity rooms,
Okay.
which this is going to be designed as an aerobic room. So we have a mirror wall positioned right here. So this will be certain dance forms that are here. And these two are very much flexible. So there will be no mirror on the wall. It's not set up for dance, but it can really be outfitted to whatever is the current need for the community at the moment.
How many people would that room accommodate for an aerobics group?
For this one,
Yeah, approximately.
let me
Do you
get
have
my
any idea?
calculator out and I will tell you.
750 square feet, is that what it says?
It does say
Yeah.
that, yes, sir. So 755. We have rules for everything here. So
About 30.
8 by 10 equals, so it depends on how many, if you're a standing room only, if you're moving around a little bit, so you can get up to 75 people in that room from a standing room only. Now, common sense tells me we're going to be jazzercising and we're going to be moving just a little bit. So let me give everybody a little bit of grace and do 20 square foot per person. You got 37 people. So 20 square foot per person is roughly about a tables and chairs scenario.
Yeah.
That's a very comfortable zone. So if you think about what it takes to have a table and a chair, a little bit of movement. So who said 30? Did you say 30? It's pretty good. You get a gold star. It's pretty good.
The way I exercise, you probably get 120.
See, I don't need a gold star, I got a cookie.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. There's,
No table needed.
don't need a whole lot of room for this.
That's exactly right.
Just quickly looking at it, one of the things that when we were speaking early on was the ability for staff to see in the recreational facility from there to be oversight, and where the building storage is on that part of the floor plan.
On the lower level?
No, up.
No, up there.
Up.
Okay.
The yellow,
Right in here.
that'd be a perfect place for somebody to have windows to look out on that track. And also the aerobic dance and activity room. If those had windows or glass
Vision
looking out onto the
windows.
track, it makes that track a little
Yeah.
more inviting and
Closed off,
safer,
yeah.
because you want to make sure that whoever's there, whatever time of the day, they feel safe. So
I think that's a great recommendation.
I'm
I'm jotting
worried.
notes down.
Oh, okay. We record these things too. The warming kitchen splits up that space for, it would be very hard to use that for one large group because of the warming kitchen splitting that up. I mean, it's going to be it'd be tough to use that room for one great big event anyway, because your focal point would be where your center doors are, on those 3 doors going out to the patio to the top, the covered porch. But my concern is a warming kitchen, yeah, it's very usable there for both sides, but it kind of makes it where you can't use the whole space.
Okay.
And then If you look at the lower floor, concessions, I assume, is going to have, what do you call those things? Utilities. So by putting it there and further away from the bathrooms, you've got a lot more plumbing that has to go on. So if you can figure out a way to put the concessions where building support 247 square, or 274 square feet goes, and that may interfere because of the elevator and stuff. You cut out some complexity as far as utilities as they go in there. And I noticed as we were switching away, kind of the same thing with the upper story, with the bathrooms are pushed. The bathrooms are all separated, and if we can figure out a way to pull those together, no matter how much closer they are, that lowers the price. So
Say that one more time just so I follow you.
the two toilets that are, those make sense because they're stacked on the ones down below, but you have 3 toilets shown up above.
Great observation.
And the cost of each of those toilets is going to be a lot more because they are so far away from the other facilities. So the more we get all of our waste and our water consolidated, the better it is for the budget.
Yep, very good. So,
And that's probably, y'all left that in there so you could shave price out and look great later.
maybe
Sorry.
have
Value
something
engineering.
to come back with
Yeah.
some different message, say we heard you and here's how we adjusted. Well played, sir. So I failed to mention these restrooms. Thank you for picking that up. So these restrooms were in response to staff wanting to be able to hold different events on this outdoor area, which this upper part is a covered porch. And so having access to restrooms without having to come into the building gives you the full maximum operational function after hours.
And is that on grade?
Yes.
Okay.
This is.
Okay,
this
so
is
those,
under-
there's not an underneath
those
there.
would work as just exterior bathrooms 24/7
That's correct.
potentially.
So
Okay.
if someone's
Well, then that-
walking and they want to come grab, something to drink or, use the restroom, keep on going with walking trail, they can do that here.
So that expense makes sense then.
And you will call, I think it was, Gretchen, you were on that, we went over to Dalton.
Yes, I was there.
And that was one of the features that they had was, it was a much larger, much larger area, and they had a ball field, I think, right there, that made a little more sense. They had, like 9 bathrooms, something crazy.
They had a whole.
But they gave us perspective of, if someone wants to have something on a Sunday and it's closed and we don't have staff there, they can still hold their family reunion party or whatever and have bathrooms, and we don't have to, have someone
Right.
come just for that one
Open the
event to
building.
open the building for them to come in, and it really kind of, I think, lends itself to what we were thinking that covered patio would kind of be, in its own activated space, independent of the rest of the building. And to Todd's point, we have had those discussions about the toilets and kind of maximizing that, the cost effectiveness there.
And those would service those tennis courts that are right there, because
They could as
That's
well.
correct.
Yeah,
That-
instead of the ones
that
that
works
are,
well.
are
That warming kitchen, Amy, will a caterer, it looks like they'll have to come in the front door and bring things down that main hallway
So-
to access the catering kitchen?
Possibly. So once we have our civil engineering team on board with the survey, there could potentially be something here, there could be something here. So we have 2 points of egress at this upper level, or they could come into the lower level and then come up the elevator too as well. So we're still working through site and how access to the site is from a public and a private standpoint. But you're onto something, so yes.
I just wondered about the ease of accessing the kitchen, if they come in with a van full of food or
Yes.
a truck of food or whatever.
So I think, to Todd's point about the warming kitchen, there were pros and cons to looking at both of these. So if you put the warming kitchen to the back, you have access to your presentation wall, makes it feel more of an open area, but then you start to have access and service off of your covered porch in the back. So a little bit of a trade-off, pros and cons to both scenarios, obviously.
Yeah, but I agree with Todd's point, with that warming kitchen, because if you were to make this like one big one long event and maybe put like a stage or something on one side or the other, you know, or something like that. Then you've got all of these people back in here are blocked from seeing what's going on there because you've got walls here. You know, so it's kind of a closed off cube in the
Yeah.
middle there. I don't know how you fix that, but.
So let me ask a question. Do y'all see yourselves using this room more as a collective open room with fewer times that you might break it apart? Is that the more dominant
We have no idea.
use?
We've never had one.
Occupancy for each.
So you have 112 and 120. So it
Depending on
depends
how you have it
So
set.
with the space in the middle, you could potentially have 180?
Yeah, I mean, you could do more round tables in that middle area,
Well, here,
you
can I
know, so.
You can still have to have a kitchen.
So if you're looking at the room as a whole, and then there's that middle section with the two partitions, the thought process, what we generally get asked and what it happens, let's say we're using the left-hand side. The very far right partition would go up, and that gives that middle area will be a different flooring, and that's what people would use for either a dance floor or the serving area or those areas, then the other area would be the sitting area. We generally, that's part of the problem with the bedroom, it's not big enough, but what they generally try to ask for is an area where they sit and an area where they either do presentations or they dance or they do any of that. So the thought process with that was that you could still use one half in the middle and then the other half could still be used by another party doing something else. The warming kitchen would have access from either side. So let's say the right-hand side didn't want the warming, then the left-hand side would be the ones using it for that particular event. So it was just trying to utilize all of that in the most variety of ways that we possibly could, and not just as one event space, but could two events be going on at the same time.
Yeah, I get that part.
So there's, but like she said, there's still a lot to kind of look at in the logistics of it. Because we really did kind of look at it a variety of ways to see what we could do. We even talked about bumping it out into the hallway, but then you lose hallway space, so. But just to give everybody kind of an idea, just based on what we've been asked for over the years, that the Betty room really kind of doesn't really give us.
Work, yeah.
So right now, the hallway between the warming kitchen and the stairs looks to be probably 20 feet.
It's not quite.
It's just
but-
guesstimate. Would it be possible to bump the warming kitchen back somewhat into the hallway to make it a little narrower at that section? And it opens up those rooms a little more.
Okay.
Just, if we were ever to need the space for civic engagement, it would be nice to be able to have, because to be able to fit that many people into one space would be awfully nice for the mayor to give her state of the city, you know, kind of stuff.
Okay.
Oh, I guess you could stand on the track above and play a
I do
Vita.
that on the basketball court.
Yeah.
You can certainly get a wider audience in this
Yeah.
one. Oh, great comments. Great questions, too.
So I think if you all recall, you know, there were a few things we said that we gotta have. You know, one of them was 2 basketball courts. You know, we wanted opportunities for tournaments and just more recreation. We wanted the walking track. You know, that was something that we heard from a lot of folks was a must-have. We talked about the covered porch, you know, an outdoor activated space. And then, you know, we kind of added this one of a lot of natural light, as much as is reasonable. You know, we don't want it to feel like some of the places we visited felt very dark. You know, when you came in, it was a long, narrow hallway that was just, it just didn't have a lot of natural light, and we kind of wanted to see that. And I think GMC has done a good job of trying to incorporate those things, you know, into into this plan.
Yeah, and in that regard, moving the activity rooms on the lower right-hand corner to the outside and pushing the hallway in would give more light into those rooms.
It would, but you're
But
cutting
you
off
lose your
future
visibility.
expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at
Visibility to
the,
the track.
and I know it's not laid out exactly to this footprint, but if you look at the plan view of the whole park, I doubt we're gonna tear up the stuff that's,
Yeah, we'll have to see how it lays out actually
Yeah.
on the property
but
once we get there.
And on that, Amy kind of alluded to this before, and staff has seen just some real basic elevations. We aren't really ready to show you guys yet, but I think when you're coming in from the parking lot, it makes a big difference. When, one thing that was important to us is we wanted this to be a community and recreation center. We did not want this to feel like just a big gym. And when you're coming in the front elevation, because of the slope, they got to confirm a few things on the survey. The gym does not really dwarf
Right.
good.
the community side, and I think that is something that is going to be very important to us on look and feel, of the building. That the community aspect is as important to us as getting the gym piece right. And in talking with Rachel and with Amy, I am surprised how much thought goes into a gym. And I'm glad it does. But when you just think about a gym, a wood floor, some hoops, striping, but there's just a lot more that you're trying to kind of situate, make it better for our parks folk. We heard on those tours, storage. There was never enough. These parks and rec departments, they get creative, they add activities, which means they add hockey nets and football stuff and everything else that kind of comes with trying to meet all of these and different needs that we have. And I think we've tried to, as best as we could. I think we'll always take more storage. I think Lisa would love that. But we try to kind of accommodate that. But as far as the site goes as well, there's just some things that are in place that we don't want to touch, i.e. Staley Field. We want to keep that kind of where it is. Basketball courts, maybe expand those a little bit, but more or less kind of, they may move a little bit, but there's still quite a bit of site work that needs to be done. But as far as the building is concerned, I think that they've been pretty responsive to kind of what we want to see, and I think that warming kitchen, points are valid. It does kind of break up the room to where it does seem like it's hard to kind of feel like it's one functional room, there. Pushing it out into the hallway maybe.
Or pushing it out on the covered porch.
Yeah, covered porch.
But then you create the same issue with covered porch.
Yeah, where it kind of breaks it up. It's a unique challenge, there. And so I think it's kind of relying on, Lisa, as far as just what is the bedroom used for, what are things used for now, and our best to kind of try to anticipate that.
Yeah. I think it's good to factor all of that in is what people want to use what we have now for, that we're not able to accommodate. But then, by the same token too, we don't want to go by that because people are looking at what we have now.
Sure.
And, trying to make it work. So it's like, what is it? What would they be doing? What would they be asking for if we had this?
If we didn't have the current limitations.
Right.
So let's not use our current limitations to
To
plan our
guide
future.
everything, but certainly take into account what's asked for that we're not able to accommodate. Yeah.
So just for
Are you able to send us this
100%, yes.
so that we can all kind of go home
Yeah,
and
me too. I'll
think
send it to
about
you, Matt,
that?
if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, okay.
Dispersing.
Just so everybody will have the floor plan and you digest it a little bit more.
Sounds good.
So for Amy's sake, because I feel to do this on my own, I'm left the next morning thinking, did I feel like I got the right direction or the clear direction? It seems like the primary feedback is on that multi-purpose room with the way that the warming kitchen kind of protrudes out of there. That we would want to lessen that and that room be
That's
as
possible,
one
yeah.
one large room. That's the main takeaway on the first floor schematic floor plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than it would be really nice to be able to have some of the staff offices up against that walking trail, so that, or walking path, so they
Can view that.
view it or
Observe it.
or people will feel that they're being observed. And maybe those windows down on the far end will accomplish that. I know we can do all that through video, but
Right.
there's
But
nothing,
still.
when you're a kid,
But it would
there's
be, well,
there's nothing like knowing that grandma's eyes are on you. And I didn't mean to call you grandma. I did not. That was,
And some of that challenge is just the way the grade, you know,
Yeah.
it'd be ideal where you're sharing a wall.
Yeah.
Your one office is there and you're sharing a wall, and just the way the grade works,
Yeah.
it makes it a little more challenging, but
Right.
yeah. Yeah, I don't think Lisa would balk or staff balk at being able to try to prevent some things before they
Yeah.
get out of hand,
Yeah.
you know, on stuff. Or if there's an emergency, heaven forbid,
Right.
you know, you've got,
Right.
you know, people there that can call 911, AED or whatever you need.
yeah, and that is the one thing on the bottom level. There isn't any set aside for staff down there.
Correct.
And maybe that's by design, but maybe I know in elementary and middle school, when I worked the gym on the weekends, we got a monitor in the gym, so having,
Yeah.
Yeah. One idea, just quickly, has come to the forefront. Don't know that we want to do this, Lisa, we have to talk to the team, but if you could just flip some of these things, this all of a sudden becomes the welcome center that also looks into the gym.
Yep.
And then you have storage. You don't have that direct linkage anymore. They have to work a few more steps to get to the rest of the staff. Don't know if that's a deal breaker or not, but it seems like an easy swap of spaces. They generally are roughly about the same size. It nestles it up a little bit tighter to more storage that was dedicated to staff. Could be something we could play with. And then by the time you add in additional visibility here, you have visibility here, and then if we add in visibility on this side, then perception is reality.
Right.
And then we start to have this opening of the building and who's looking, who's watching, and maybe they're minding their P's and their Q's.
okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's exciting. It's a pleasure being here with y'all. Thank you.
All right, and then we have item B, proposal by Certified Turf Consulting LLC. Sam Crow is here to talk a little bit about some grass on the green.
that's why he looked familiar.
Yep. Sam,
before you-
welcome.
So before you get started,
Is
just,
this okay here?
Yeah,
you're good.
or if you want to pull a chair there and have a seat too, that works.
Yes, I'm just here to answer any questions y'all may have. Matt and I reviewed the town green lawn and definitely is in need of repair. But it has a lot of functions on it and it serves a great purpose for the city. So the idea is, you know, what are y'all's expectations of that usage? How often? And under what climatic conditions do y'all want to still have it available? You know, because the options can depend on what your expectation is. That's, and then you can put some type of a budget to what will best meet y'all's expectations.
Problem is, our expectation is to be able to use it 24/7, 365.
And have beautiful, perfect grass all year
And
long.
never have to cancel an event because of rain
Then that's
or
probably
lack
artificial
thereof.
turf.
Probably concrete.
Which is not necessarily maybe a grade better than asphalt, but it's still a lot hotter. I understand the desire to want natural turf, because it is cooler, more environment friendly, but it comes with a cost.
On your fee proposals here, this first one, which is the most extensive, is that $3,000 per what? You just said $3,000.
All right. On my
It's
fee
just to
proposal,
develop.
not the options for the loan, but that is just to provide a detailed plan that could be sent out to get estimates.
Okay, I got you.
Just for the town grade.
Okay.
That would, because like I said, depending on what recommendations or what suggestions or expectations, I could go many different ways, and I didn't, I'm shooting in the dark, trying to determine and narrow this down to a certain guesstimation of what would meet y'all's expectations. And that would take, once we find that out, then it will take some time to come up with estimates. But, before an estimate be gotten, you gotta have, some detailed expectations of what kind of work needs to be done. And then you can go from there.
So one of the things that we did when we were out there was, David was out there with us, and we kind of had a, what's the tool saying that we?
Just a probe,
a probe. And I mean, we could probably, I mean, it's very compacted, as you'd imagine. We tried different sections, very compacted. Clay. We didn't really run into, we were about, 6 to 8 inches down in some spots. Didn't feel like we were hitting any kind of, concrete or granite or anything, but it was just hard. It was hard, very compacted. And just, now there was definitely rocks and things, maybe, gravel or, I mean, just, there was stuff in there for sure. But, we weren't striking gold or anything. I mean, it was just, it was hard to get that in. And a lot of, we probed the section where most of the, I guess the ground is exposed, kind of by the brick pavers and the entryway where, you cross the street, you kind of come into that, I guess kind of a little plaza area sort of thing of pavers when you're walking in. And then we kind of probed further down where we've kind of had the more the drainage issues where folks are getting stuck and that sort of thing. And they were both pretty tough. I mean, both pretty, you really had to put some muscle. Well, I didn't. Sam really had to put some muscle. and David did too.
You sat there and watched.
Yeah, I sat there and supervised what I do best. Yeah.
Kurt went out
So,
and
it's
he
tough.
was, we have an interest, of course, in
Sure.
that for the farmer's market. And he went out and was probing those areas right there, right off the
Pavers.
The pavers, yeah.
pavers.
Yeah.
And you found it was 2 to 2.5 inches deep before you hit.
Right by the,
Keep.
main entrance, there's a definite demarcation line along there. I sprayed dots where I probed down where what I'm saying is some kind of paving from there over, to Oak Road.
Yeah.
And from there over, you had, 4 or 6 inches. But in that area, there was only, 2.5 inches down to a hard surface. And
It appears to be crush and run gravel, which can seal off. I mean, that's mostly driveways are put down with that, and then concrete are on top of that. So it's extremely compacted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing.
It used to
that
be a
it's
little
gotten-
retail shopping center out
And they
there.
just mowed it down.
Yeah,
So
buried it over.
any attempt to improve that area is gonna be better than what you've got. But it just depends on
How much?
you wish to invest and how much usage you wanna have. I mean, if you tell us that you want to have a half an inch of rain at noon the day before, and you wanna use it the next day at 9 o'clock, that tells me more what you're looking for.
We do that.
Because when it's saturated, you're gonna cause more compaction. If you want it to take 3 inches of rain like we've had on the one night, and the next day you can still use it, that tells me what needs to be done to it. If you're just wanting to keep the grass alive and try your best at trying to save the soil that's there and amend it, that tells me something else. So again, I need that feedback to determine what direction we want to go and how to try to best mitigate the difficult situation it has to try to
Well,
go
for
through.
example, we could have a rainy Friday and have a food truck Friday starting at 4 o'clock that afternoon with food trucks coming on to the green. And then we could have the farmer's market the next Saturday morning.
And then a concert
That
Saturday night.
Yeah. So,
Y'all do a wonderful job, and Max, using that, I mean, because it does bring community together.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to say
you can't or
You
do
can't do that.
Right.
That's not what, I think what I can bring is give you a best case scenario of how to utilize it the most with a minimal or with the amount of money that you can provide. Excavate like option one, just go in and pull all that soil out and put your own soil in that reduces compaction as best as possible. That's the most expensive case scenario. We can try to amend what's there, but again, when you're leaving most of that gravel, and if you depends on how far you go down to loosen it up, if you can get it loosened and then amend it 6 inches, it's going to be better, but it will still probably get compacted again, especially after a heavy rain and you're putting all that traffic on there. So that's what I'm just asking the feedback. What is the expectation of the council? Because that will dictate really how much effort we need to go to make that lawn more usable. Because, I built golf greens. I mean, that's where you can play on it 2 hours after a rain. But that's pretty much what you're looking at, maybe not going the full depth, but that's what you would have to do, is put underground drainage in it and amend or change that soil so it would drain. But that's the most expensive.
Mm-hmm. And because the other thing you got, if you're dealing with real grass, it has a growing season. And the things that you would do to help that grass grow and be stronger sometimes correspond to the farmer's market and all the events that are going on. So it's
Same time of year.
same time of year. So, you got all of that to play into it too.
You're always going to have the challenge that
Yeah.
you mentioned that suspected, possibly boiling water poured out that might have been salty water. Things like that are going to possibly happen, and there's nothing we could do to prevent death to that grass if somebody did that, other than do our best to try to educate them, so that all the vendors know this is what we hope you don't do. But you're not going to be able to police it and stop it if someone just spills it. That's an accident, all those things, but you can correct that. But again, it's the soil makeup is what's giving you the most challenge right now, because it's so compacted, and it will continue to get worse without anything done to it.
Well, I don't want to cut this off, but we've got a exec session we've got to get to. But why don't we, based on what Sam's saying, we'll get Kelly, I don't see her tonight, and if you guys can sit down and say, this is what we want to be able to do. And let's lay that out, and then give that feedback to Sam to figure out, okay, for us to be able to do that, what is it that would have to be done? And then see if we've got some budget that we can allocate to it.
Pretty much from at least like May through September, we use it every week with vehicle traffic on it,
Yeah. But there may be some parameters too, that if we get rain on, if we get more than an inch of rain on Thursday, that maybe you don't drive certain things on it on Saturday. Or, if we get rain on Friday afternoon, that certain things need to be off limits. Kind of think along those lines. Would you be willing to put in any kind of changes or anything like that upon those type scenarios? Because I think that would help you.
And all those things will help. We understand, if the big food trucks coming in and they need to leave them running and their exhaust is pointing straight down, but like people standing behind a table at a farmer's market, if they stand in one spot for hours, that spot's going to not survive. Now, put a mat down, have them have a mat where they're standing on. One, it might be helpful for them to not get as muddy shoes. But, those little things could help. But again, getting it to be implemented and all that, that's a challenge that beyond me, that I would be able to, recommend how that could be done. But anything that can reduce the compaction would help in the survival of that grass, other than just replanting it every year And that's what you would be kind of looking at without doing any other amendment. It's just continuously residing. And then you still, it's gonna be muddy, have cars get stuck, stuff like that, so.
Okay. Well, let us put our heads together a little bit more and try to give you a little more feedback,
Okay.
and then give you a direction on where to head to.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Sam. Appreciate it. Okay, so I guess we'll just skip our update on projects if you want to.
Just the only thing I'd say is that the restaurants are starting construction on Oak Road, so.
Yay!
And the sidewalks are jamming along. We only have 8 minutes. We've got a very short agenda. Should we just come back after?
We can't.
Can't.
We can't. Okay.
We need to talk about things before we get to the meeting.
All right. Go in there and tell them folks we may be a little
We'll
late.
be just a few minutes late. During the work session of the mayor and city council